Welcome to City Council work session for Monday, December 21st, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Councilman Scaringi.
Present.
Councilwoman Resnetti.
Present.
Councilwoman Riley.
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman.
Present.
Councilman Burns.
Present.
Councilman Strong.
Present.
President Scanlon.
Present.
That's all 7 here.
All right, first of all, we have Mr. Paddock presenting. First of all, Mr. Paddock, I want to congratulate you and your crew. As one that traveled around on Friday to through work because we're helping other municipalities clean out. I think we were better than most as far as the shape goes, and unprecedented storm, obviously, but I thought your crew did a great job, and obviously I continue to push the snow back, but I just want to get that out there first before we go.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it and all your guys' support. And I'd also like to say thank you to the Water Sewer Department and the Parks and Recreation Department. Obviously, it was a team effort. We couldn't do it without them, and collaboratively we worked together, and we're still working, and I think things are in pretty good shape and they'll only continue to get better. The only thing I'll say is that I expected about 13 to 15, and when I found about 4.3 feet, that was a lot different than we expected. So
Yeah,
thank you.
no doubt about it. Yep. All right, tell us about Arrow 20-249, please.
Okay, Tommy, it's to amend the 2021 budget for the DPW Center Garage. That's our maintenance and repairs operation, our DPW maintenance of roads. This is to bring back the 2 general mechanics. They're part of my second shift. I don't have that second shift operation that supports our snow removal operations and some other operations as well. Also, as well as a motor equipment operator. That's who runs sanitation vehicles, plow trucks, and all those types of things. I'm in need of those, so we wanted to bring back those positions to the budget.
I'd like to remind people, please mute if you're not speaking. There's some background noise again. All right, thank you, Mr. Paddock. Questions or comments on this?
Yeah.
None. All right. So, Mr. Burns, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, John. Yeah, I want to thank you all for all the snow removal and everything and it was especially nice that I was able to tell my constituents that I just spoke to the commissioner. So thank you for calling me back when you did and everything. And it was nice. The mayor called me back, you called me back. And so it was nice to have answers for people and all that craziness. Anyway, now I know that these three positions were under the contingency, and I'm sure, especially when we saw that we needed all that extra help that came in and everything, and I know that you need people to be working on the equipment. But we did the budget, and I was told, I talked to Chuck several times about the contingency stuff, and the people were in contingency, and we were going to see how much money we get from the federal government before we took people out of contingency and put them online. And we are not going to get any money on this new bill that passed. We were hoping that, the municipalities were going to get money from this, and we're not getting anything. So I'm wondering, and we haven't even gone in, it's still 2020 and this is 2021. And I'm just wondering and it's not these 3 positions. What I'm thinking, I guess I'm putting this out to all the council, that what is the fiscally responsible thing that we do now with all of these positions that were in contingency that we had financed that weren't filled? When do we not fill them? When do we fill them? So I don't know if that's to you, John, or not. I mean, that was just my thoughts though when I saw it. And I know that you need things fixed and I'm not saying we don't need these three, but just in general, I'm throwing that out there.
Joe,
Councilman Burns, I'd respond like this. At some point, we're going to see money from the federal government, and it's probably going to be pretty quick after the 21st of January. It won't be long after that the municipalities will see some money from the government. It's a fact. So if we know it's coming. Obviously, it's a matter of when it's coming. I would say within 6 weeks from now, we probably would see some money. That's my best guess on that.
Was somebody else talking there as well? Thank you, Tom, for that.
Joe, it's Chuck. The answer to your question is there's probably like 9 positions, I think, in the DPW spot. I can't remember exactly. I'm not in my office right now, but
There was a total of 13.
and
Wow.
we're bringing 3 of them back. Okay, 3 that we think are critical to the operation. Where they're down 2 mechanics, and they have only 6, so they're basically down a third in their for people to fix trucks, which has been a problem. The other one that we're bringing back is a person to drive a snow plows.
Right.
Okay, I would say if we don't get money from the federal aid here in the next 3 months, we'd have to look at those positions. But we're trying to figure out how do we get from now to the end of the month, and hopefully we get some federal aid.
Yeah. So the other positions that are listed in the contingency, are we going to do the
At this point,
the fiscally responsible thing of not bringing them all back for each department? You know what I'm saying? Or are we? Is that how we're? Because obviously we need some of the people that are on there. So
there's no doubt we do, but we're going to look at each one at different times and make a decision at certain times for them.
all right. Thank you very much.
This is Councilwoman Friedman.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to, first of all, echo my gratitude for all of the work that everyone has put in for this unprecedented snow removal. I was fortunate that I didn't have to leave my house for about 2 days after the snow fell, but I saw that my road was plowed promptly. So thank you so much for that huge undertaking. I have some follow-up questions to the point that Councilman Burns raised. So it seems like these 3 positions are being brought back because of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not, I guess, urgency. So is that like what? I guess my question is, is that the plan going forward, that we just, when these positions that were in the contingency line become urgently necessary, is that when we bring them back, and we kind of, scramble to move funds around? And again, I'm not saying that these aren't necessary. Of course, I see the necessity in these positions, but I'm just wondering what's the game plan overall, I guess, is my question for these contingency positions.
Aviva, the short answer to that one is we're not just waiting till it's an emergency. We've been waiting to see what we basically needed to do. You talk to any department head, they're going to tell you that they need all these positions, but honestly, we can't afford it till we know what's going on with federal aid. Okay? We're not going to bankrupt the city if we can try to find a way to get around different situations, which we have. But in the end, every week, the mayor's looking at these and what do we want to do with them? And I mean, John's been complaining about having these mechanics short for some time. And, I think we cannot operate a second shift without the mechanics successfully. So that's the reason for doing it. And we couldn't do it until the first meeting in January to move the money. That's why we're doing it today.
Okay. I also, that reminded me of my other question. So I see at the top of the page, it says expedite, but then crossed out, and then it says for January 6, 2021. What does that mean? Is it expedited, or this is for the?
No, you're gonna vote on it in your first meeting in January. You can't vote on anything in 2020 for the 21 budget.
I see. Okay. Oh, January 6th is the next. Okay, I got confused. I thought that was talking about for our next work session, but this will be just regular business as usual vote. January 6th is the next business meeting.
Yes, and the people will come on board on January 9th, hopefully. I mean, we would like to have a pretty good idea of where everybody stands so we can, you know, make offers to people so that we don't have to go through the whole process of hiring people after you guys vote on it. We'd like to have something in place so that you guys approve it on January 9th, we can bring these people on January 9th. I mean, you vote on it January 6th, we hire these people January 9th, we already have it in process.
Right, okay. So hopefully this is not the process that we go through for all of the positions that are listed in contingency. These are just imminently necessary. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, and we're actually doing it within the time period normally of giving you basically 2 weeks notice, but I certainly understand your concern about all this, and but we're trying to give you as much notice as we can on all of these as we go forward.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments on RL 20-249?
I just wanted to say something to John before he leaves, and it's not regarding the RL. I wanted to echo everything that was said already regarding the response and this unprecedented snowstorm. Thank you so much for all your work, everything that you do. It was 24/7, and it was, a team effort. And I appreciate the callbacks, the quick responses. Thank you, John, to you and everyone, and mayor's office, and just everybody who was involved. I wanted to just throw that out there before you leave. Thank you.
No, and thank you for all your support, the mayor's support, the DOT, Chuck, all the people. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that make this possible, and I don't think they get enough credit. So I just want to say thank you for your support, and we're out there trying to do the best we can. And I'll pass it along to the men and women.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Panic. RL 20-246, Mr. Standish, you're out there?
Yep.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yep. This resolution allows the city to enter into an agreement with Labella Associates for the pedestrian safety action plan. It's a DOT funded project. Back in earlier in the year, we did interviews, and we had 3 firms that we interviewed, and there were 2 projects to be done. And what we did is we gave one project, the signal project, to McFarland, and we gave the PSAP, this pedestrian safety action plan, to Barton and Judas. And to make it fair, we opted to give the inspection on both of those projects to Labella. So this is both those projects are getting ready to be bid. So we have to get our firm in place for the construction review services.
All right, Mr. Standish, I see the next RL is specifically, it's a PSAP specifically for Holly Street and Washington Street. The first one, is that associated to a certain street, a certain area?
The PSAP, the first one, the one we just talked about now, is for I think it's 10 or 11 different locations around the city.
Okay.
One is that the signal on Bevere Street in mid-block there, that will be replaced with one of the flashing pedestrian crossings. And there's one on Clinton Street near the church. There's one on Prospect Street near the school. These are generally near hospitals, schools, churches, places, and other places where there's heavy pedestrian traffic. There's two near the General Hospital on the south side, one on Park and one on Mitchell. So that's what this safety program is. It's ADA ramps, the painted crossings, some raised crossings with flashing pedestrian signals.
Okay, other questions on RL 20-246? All right, Mr. Fittis, tell us about 20-247, please.
Yes, 247 is this is a resolution for the city to enter into an agreement with Labella Associates for the construction review services for the Hawley Street, Washington Street traffic signal upgrade, which will be going out to bid here shortly also. And that also is a DOT funded project.
Okay, I see all three of these RLs are requested. So can you tell us why they're all designated to be requested to vote on quickly?
Well, we have to get all these contracts in place for the construction review and have it approved by the DOT so that they're ready to go when the bids go out, which should be shortly.
Okay. All right, just want to clarify that. Questions on RL 20-247?
Yes, this is Councilwoman
All right.
Friedman.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering how the specific intersections were chosen. I know you said it's places with high pedestrian traffic, maybe near hospitals. Is there, or schools, for example, but how were the specific intersections chosen?
They're not all intersections, but the sites were all chosen because of either complaints or I went out and reviewed them and picked them because they were what I felt like met the criteria. And these were also reviewed by BMTS, who approved the locations as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And of course, the DOT had to approve the locations as well.
Other questions on RL 20-247?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Standish. Unfortunately, I'm having some Wi-Fi issues and I missed a piece of your earlier statement. You mentioned something about in the bidding process and fairness. Can you repeat that for me, please?
Yes, because these were DOT funded projects, we had to hire the consultants. We had to do our normal shortlisting. And when we only had 3 submittals, so the short list was 3. You didn't have to review anything to get to the short list. The short list was already at 3. We were interviewing 3 firms for 2 projects. So what I did was, and I discussed it with the committee who does the interviews, that McFarland did the State Street signal. So we felt that it would be a good idea to have them do the next one that's right next door, which is Hawley and Washington. So that's how they were selected. And Barton LaJudas has been working on the Main Street pedestrian project. So they're familiar with all the pedestrian safety issues. So they were selected to do that, which left Labella. So we felt that the fair thing to do would give them a piece of the action by giving them the construction review services for both of them. Generally, with a DOT funded project, the firm that does the engineering cannot do the construction inspection. So that's why we also had to get a different firm.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
You're welcome.
Other question is RL 20-247. Mr. Standish, tell us about RL 20-147, please.
Yes, this was brought to you back in July, and it got tabled due to some funding issues, I guess, and somehow it fell through the cracks and get brought back. The DOT needs these agreements because we've already done one of the bridges. So we probably shouldn't have even started those without having this authorization to do the construction. So we need to get this expedited and get these agreements signed and back to the DOT. This is the agreement with the DOT that allows the release of the funds to be able to do the work. And so without this, we don't get reimbursed. And this is for the Belden Street and Conklin Avenue bridges. And if you've been on the south side lately, although this is not a great time to see it, but the Belden Street bridge is done. The only thing we're holding off on is some paving to do in the spring, because when they finished up, the weather wasn't that great. So we opted to just put some temporary paving in until spring, when we'll finish the approaches. But the bridge itself is all done, and it looks very nice.
Questions on RL 20-147?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Riley again.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Yes, and this may be for Chuck. I just want to make sure at the bottom of the RL, it says funding available in line. Are we to, the line we're speaking of is the handwritten funding line at the top? Because it's nothing there after the colon.
Hi, this is Ken. If you look at the legislation, I think corrected the RLs. I think there was confusion on the RL, but the legislation's up to date.
Councilwoman Riley, are you okay?
I'm looking. So what page number are
Okay.
you referring to, Ken?
Well, I'm referring to the legislation that gets sent around. It's not part of it's not the packet with the RLs. It's the actual legislation. If this one's being expedited, it's drafted, we can send it to you in the morning.
Thank you. Because that's what we would need to see just to verify. Because all
Yeah,
I have
Lee-
is what's in front of me.
Lee, can you please make a note to, forward that legislation to council in the morning?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
And so we do have, so we're going with, so the legislation will note the specific line from which this funding is being pulled.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, RL 20-147? Thank you, Mr. Standish.
Before I go, is Chuck
Yep.
still on?
Yes, I am, Ray.
Chuck, you wanted some information?
I didn't hear you, Ray.
You wanted me to speak on something?
I don't have anything to speak on.
Okay, I thought you wanted to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Ray, thank you. Thank you. Tom, President, before you go, we have a issue with one of our bonds. It's a sludge extraction system that is taking the sludge out of the water filtration plant, and we're going to start doing it ourselves and be able to do it 24/7, 12 months a year, not like just in the summer months. And the bond is due to expire in April. Due to COVID, we can extend this for one additional year, up to 2 possible years, without going through any type of real legislation, except for making city council aware that we're extending it from a 5-year ban to a 6-year ban. And our bond attorney wanted to make sure that everyone in council was aware that we're going to extend that for another year. And if you got any questions about the project, Ray can speak up about it, or I could speak up about the bonding itself. Thanks, Ray.
This is
It's,
Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Yes, hi, thank you again. So with this COVID extension we're being allowed, Chuck, does that mean we will not see a change in the interest rate of this ban?
Well, each ban gets renewed every year, so we'll, instead of having to go long term with it in April, we will extend it for another 1 year at whatever the interest rates are then, come April.
Okay, in April, we'll know the new interest rate, but we're approving it at this point. You guys are approving it at this point.
Councilwoman, you don't even have to approve it. All he wants me to do is, you've already approved the bond and the ban on it. All I need to do is make you aware that we're extending it beyond the 5-year term. There's no legislation that has to be passed. It's just to make, he wants to make sure that everybody's aware of it.
Thank you.
This is Councilwoman. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Councilman Burns, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. When you say that we are going to do the extraction ourselves, does that mean we're not doing it now, or is this something we're building that's going to?
John, what happens is right now is we don't really have an extraction system right now. And so the sludge builds up in the tank and then it gets pumped into the sewer, and the wastewater treatment plant gets it in a big slug. And the material that slug is made up with is from the river. So it's just silt and grit and all stuff that the regular treatment plant doesn't like, and it doesn't really treat it. It just goes through their system and gets pulled out with the regular sludge and gets sent to the landfill. But going through their system does harm to the system. What will happen now is a new sludge extraction system will be installed, which allows the water plant to remove the sludge on a daily or weekly basis and send it down in smaller portions so that it does not affect the wastewater treatment plant as bad. In the future, the plan is to have a belt press at the water treatment plant that will take care of the sludge right there, and it'll go right to the landfill without going down to the wastewater treatment plant. But the first phase is to do the sludge extraction system.
Will this help with that? There was in the budget, there was, I think it's $300,000 that the treatment plant was charging us with sludge. Does that have something to do with that?
Yes.
So are we going to do away with that $300,000 charge?
Yes. Once the belt press is completed in phase 2, whenever that goes out to bid, yes, then there will be no charge back to the water treatment plant from the wastewater treatment plant.
That's great. Awesome. Okay. Thanks.
Somebody else had a question?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I was wondering if you or Chuck could explain how COVID-19 allowed for the extension of this bond.
Councilwoman, Governor Cuomo extended, we're a normal ban is for 5 years. Governor Cuomo did some legislation that extended it up to 7 years for all bans. Doesn't matter what city, town, county you live in New York State. But back in the, I'm going to say the May or June timeframe, he passed some legislation that allows the extension of up to 2 years on all bans.
I see. And that's presumably for the assumed loss in tax revenue or, you know, money coming into the city.
No, I think
Because of COVID?
the issue of trying to get certain projects done have been more difficult this year than prior years.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Standish.
You're welcome. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.
All right.
Thanks, Ray.
You too.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Ray.
Thank you.
On RL 20-250, Mr. Carson, are you out there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this RL came about because Achieve's program for the summer, which was already approved by City Council, was $8,000 for their summer program, which is a recreational program. It gets these kids from all over the area, including several City of Binghamton residents, gets them together. All these children have developmental disabilities or learning disabilities. Gets them together, gets them doing activities, physical activities, gets them engaged in learning activities, social skills. Well, obviously with COVID, you can't have a bunch of people, couldn't have the standard sort of summer program. I had asked the head of that program if there are any other programs they had done that they think they could utilize the money for. Essentially, basically a change in scope, and that's what this is. So another program, instead of running their summer program, they did this program which involved something similar to the recreation program, but doing it virtually, doing it unlimited on site, as in going to the kids' homes with specialists, helping the kids out, engaging with them. So the whole point of this RL is basically to take the funding for their summer program, their recreational summer program, to this alternative program. The money for the contract does not change from the original.
Questions or comments on RL 20-250?
I have a question.
Councilman Burns?
I have a question about the new, just by the federal government. Do you think it'll be possible that when we get if we're going to get, I assume that we're going to get more money from this new one that passed today, I guess it passed. But will people that got money from that first one, will they be able to reapply for within the second one because the COVID thing has been lasting so long?
Well, the only problem with providing additional funds for, so this is a completely separate thing. So you're talking about the COVID funding. We did provide assistance to nonprofits and for businesses through the COVID funding. If we were going to provide an additional round or additional benefits, we have to go back and make sure that we are providing an equal opportunity to those who already received funding in case we're exceeding it. So, for example, if we change our rules to provide twice as much as we were providing before, we'd have to go back and evaluate, make sure that we provided that same opportunity to businesses or nonprofits we assisted before. So that's with that. And concern to our mortgage and rental assistance, there is a catch about the 3-month period in that you can only provide funding for up to 3 months. And if we do go up to 6 months, there could be an issue there providing assistance for people that exceed 3 months because of HUD ruling. So it's a lot of this is a matter of hitting HUD regulations and trying to work around them to provide maximum benefits. But we are getting ready to, or we have rolled out that business assistance. I believe there's a business assistance RL for later from Jared. So we did another round of that, but it's equal in value and scope to the original one. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Other questions on RL 20-250? All right, Mr. Carson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Martinez, you out there?
I am here, yes.
All right, tell us about RL 20-251, please.
Okay, so CPL, Clark Patterson Lee, has been working on designing amenities at several riverfront locations in the city. And as part of their permitting process that they're going through, the state DEC, when conducting their review of the proposal, found evidence of the possible presence of endangered or threatened mussel species at 2 of these locations. So the state is requiring that we do a survey, a mussel survey at these locations. And CPL will be subcontracting a biologist to conduct the survey. So that is part of the added cost that's been added to their proposal. And then in addition, construction administration has been added, which we were going to add from the beginning, but because of time constraints when the first RL went through, it was left as optional. And so the cost of the mussel survey and the cost of construction administration has been added to their proposal and to their agreement. And the money will be coming from the DASNY grant, so it's not going to cost the city any additional money. We will have to scale back maybe some of the projects to be able to pay for the new costs, but it's coming from the grant.
Questions on RL 20-251?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering how this firm was chosen. They were already working on the project, and so now they are subcontracting out for a biologist to do this. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. Yeah, CPL had already been chosen after an RFQ. They had been chosen. They started working on the project, and then the state required this mussel survey. And so CPL went ahead and subcontracted a firm, the only available firm to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions on RL 20-251? Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Happy New Year, Tito.
You too.
Ms. Berlin, are you out there?
Yes, I am.
All right, tell us about RL 20-252, please.
All right, we are hoping to go into an agreement or extend an agreement with Metro Interfaith for the second round of our zombie grant award. I want them to administer a program targeting only City of Binghamton residents, at-risk homeowners, to assist with foreclosure prevention, coordinate outreach, develop education and counseling material, administer the plans, and work with us on this part of our grant.
This one's Julia. I don't know what his name was. She's a real estate lady.
So it's a grant, a big grant. This is one section of it. So this is only, the award is for like $10,000 for them to do the work.
All right. Questions on RL 20-252, please. RL 20-252. Any questions?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to ask, sorry, I'm scrolling back down to this. I wanted to ask why this was expedited.
The grant ends June 30th, 21, and I was hoping to get them on board in October, but due to complications from COVID and their personnel staff, we haven't been able to begin this part of our project. So the sooner the better.
I'm sorry, I missed that last thing that you said.
Oh, I just said the sooner the better.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions about RL 20-252? Thank you, Ms. Burling.
Absolutely. Bye.
The next one's for Mr. Cram and Mr. Frank, RL 20-248.
How's it going? First off, and Ken can jump in here, but I believe that the last meeting of every year, all of the RLs are always expedited because of changes in committees for the following year. I could be wrong on that, but that was my impression why the last meeting of the year always has all the legislation for the year to be approved prior to the end. That Ken can get into that maybe. But as for this resolution, since council adopted this in September, there's been negotiations continuing with Verizon Wireless, baseball team, minor league baseball, et cetera. And we'll need to amend the agreement in kind of two material ways. Number one, the baseball team is now included as part of the agreement that they were not previously. And the rent as part of the annual payment will also go to the baseball team. There was discussions with the team about their current lease and rights to commerciality at the stadium. However, the city is adding in a provision that this lease can remain with Verizon so long as there is a AA professional baseball franchise. So at the point at which there is not a AA or professional baseball team there, the entity, the team, the local team does not have rights to this lease with Verizon Wireless. So those are the two main changes since this was adopted in September. One of the other big changes is the news regarding the stadium and regarding the team for the long term. So those are, we just need to amend this to allow us to go with the new agreement.
Jared, has there been any announcement, maybe I missed it, about the extent that the Mets will stay here for the Rumble Ponies?
Say that again?
Is there any word on the extension, how long the Rumble Ponies will be in town for?
Well, I'll have to look in terms of what the Mets have kind of publicly announced, but I think that it's for the long term. I mean, you're talking about a generation or so, because the manner in which minor league teams are allocated in agreements with the major league clubs, that's changing. So, the news that came out that really against all odds that Binghamton survived that wave of cuts, that's what locked us in for the long term.
Okay, great. Thank you. Questions on RL 20-248, please. All right, Jared, tell us about RL 20-253, please.
Sure. So this is the second round of small business assistance funding through our CARES Act. We did a bid for businesses to apply. They submitted applications. Those went to Paul Nelson and Steve Carson. They were reviewed, and attached to the RL is a list of just the first round of businesses that the city has vetted, and these are amounts not to exceed for COVID relief. So just as a reminder, this is to pay for a direct mortgage and rent assistance, direct utility assistance, any increased costs in PPE or other costs, insurance has to do with COVID-19. And these businesses still have to work with the city and submit backup paperwork, et cetera. So these are amounts, not necessarily that the businesses will receive all of it, but based on their full-time and equivalency employment numbers, this is what they would be eligible for based on the criteria of the city's CARES Act relief funding program. So, the businesses are on page 54 in the packet. Obviously, many of these businesses are in the restaurant hospitality sector, have been hit hard, and we want to get their applications processed and get this money out the door as quickly as possible. There are other businesses that are still that have applied, that are still going through the vetting process and still getting required paperwork in. And I would imagine in the next few consecutive work sessions, we'll be bringing additional lists of businesses to receive this funding.
Questions or comments on RL 20-253?
Yeah, it's Joe.
Go to Councilman Burns.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Is there, can people still apply?
We have closed the round of funding. As of right now, the applicants that we have appear to be able to fill the funding that's available. But because these amounts are not to exceed, it may very well be possible that certain expenses are not eligible and we may end up having more down the road. So I can't say right now whether there will be future rounds, but there will definitely be more businesses out of the last round we did, which seemed to have more of an interest than the first round coming down to City Council.
All right, thanks, Jared.
Yep.
Other questions on RL 20-253? Thank you, Jared. Next one's for Ken Frank and Chuck Shager, RL 20-254.
Hi, this is Ken. My camera doesn't seem to be working today. Just wanted to jump in before we discuss this. Jared's point, certainly, so last year, for example, we made sure everything was expedited since there would be a new city council and you couldn't have people voting on legislation that hadn't been done, from the year before. Everything does not have to be expedited when we're moving from one council to another. In the past, I think they actually did like a carryover motion at the last meeting. And that was the basis to move the legislation forward from one year to the next, even though committees would change. I don't think it's necessary, but that's why you have some that are not being expedited. And some are just from a timing standpoint. I think as Juliet pointed out, because of COVID, sometimes some of these things aren't getting done. When you have a chance to do them, you do want to get them done as quickly as possible. Regarding this RL, Chuck Shager talked a little bit about this at the work session 2 weeks ago. We explained we were still working on some of it. We would get it out to everybody. I sent the proposed legislation to everybody on December 11th, I believe. So really, I'm hoping everybody's had it. You've had an opportunity to look at it. I just want to know if there are any questions.
This is Councilwoman Friedman.
Yes.
Yes, Councilwoman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question actually not about this legislation, but about what you were just talking about the expediting of all of the legislation. So you said that that's normally done between councils, but between years, that's customary to do as well?
No. What I said is that in those cases, what the council used to do is make a motion to carry over. I don't think it's necessary, but that's how they dealt with it in the past. But we've always had legislation going from one year to the next, as long as it's the same council.
Okay, so then theoretically, I mean, most of this packet is expedited, everything except for the first piece of legislation. So that's all on an individual basis. The people who are submitting that legislation asked for it to be expedited, not a blanket, everything is expedited because it's going into the next year.
Correct.
Okay. I see. Okay, so in that case, I would like to ask why this piece of legislation is expedited.
This does need to be done this year because there are things, for example, the insurance rates. Chuck can't charge people for insurance if it's not in the code, right? Most of the things in here are things that are going to affect people's rights in 2021. And that needs to be done this year so that it's in effect right then. There are actually a lot more sections in 124 that need to be updated. For example, there's one provision regarding a buyout that expired, I think, in 2012. There are lots of provisions in here that need to be updated. These were the ones that are most likely to have an impact in 2021, so they should be done now so that they're in effect in 2021.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Other questions on RL 20-254? Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Everybody's look over pending legislation. If you want to talk about something or anything else you want to discuss, let me know. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. In the meantime, we're going to have a meeting scheduled it's an organizational meeting to discuss the next president and items along those lines, the next committee assignments, which will be on 5:30, January 4th. I think that's the first meeting we have. So 5:30 before our regular scheduled work session, we'll have a committee meeting, organizational meeting to discuss what committees everybody's on.
And the president of city council stays the same, or we vote on that as well?
There's a new vote coming January 4th. That'll be at that organizational meeting also.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that changed every year, actually.
It typically does, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is certainly a vote every year on the
Yep.
president, the pro tem, and the committees, and the appointment of the committees.
And so is anybody like to discuss anything on pending legislation or anything else you'd like to discuss? Speak up now, please. Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Councilwoman
I'll
Riley.
Councilwoman Friedman, second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful holiday.
All right.
We'll be back before the holiday.
Wednesday.
Good night.
I will be there on Wednesday.
One
Oh,
more.
well, have a good holiday.
By the way, everybody, so you know, Sharon, Wednesday night will be the last meeting where she's covering the business meeting.
Oh.
Aw.
Sharon is going to take a temporary job being our personnel director.
Oh, okay.
Good for her.
2022.
Okay, she'll be back, but starting in January, she's going to work in personnel to give us a little continuity.
Perfect.
Okay.
Goodbye.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, Ken,
Bye.
happy New